One of the things that brought my attention also is that he is on the Higher Education Appropriations Committee, thus a very good person to have come and address us. But rather than talk about a lot of the political issues, I wanted him to come and talk about his year as a freshman legislator. We had, as you know, over 50 freshman legislators this year. I think it's the largest freshman class we have ever had. And I know a lot of us who lobby were a little concerned about trying to meet so many new faces. But some were really friendly, some were a little withdrawn. But I will say that many of them carried a lot of significant legislation this year. I also think that there was an attempt to work with each other. They got to know each other through all their meetings and things that they had before they actually took office. So without further description or anything, I would like to have you have a warm welcome for Representative Mike Murphy.
Thank you very much. When I saw the agenda and I saw my topic was reflections of a freshman legislator, I doubt that this was the look that you thought of a freshman. However, I do take great pride in the fact that I am not the oldest freshman legislator in the 101st General Assembly. But talked about my background a little bit. I'm very proud of the fact that I grew up in Divernon, Illinois. It's a small little town south of Springfield. My mom and dad were very active in the community. I think that's where I got the start of my interest in being involved in things. Later, I mentioned I was in the United States Army for 3 years. I spent 2 years in Alabama and then 1 year in the Republic of South Korea. And that was a very important year for me in my life because it you know, when you're, at the time I was about 22 years old, you don't appreciate what you have. And when I went to South Korea, there were wonderful people over there, and I love them dearly. But when I came back to the United States, I understood what great things we were doing here and how much I appreciate them. And it really was a life-changing moment for me. After I went to Eastern Illinois University, that's where my wife and I got married. And I was involved in politics over there. I was a political science major, and I thought that's where my career would lead me. I was working with a state senator, Max Coffey, and one day he came up and said, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I said, I'm not really sure. I just love working on campaigns and constituent service. And he says, well, I'm building a strip mall. Why don't we open up a restaurant together, and you work there part-time and run my office for me part-time. And so I like to say that when you're young and dumb, you do things like that. The question is, have I ever worked in a restaurant before? No. Had he ever worked in a restaurant before? No. And so that's a really good combination to open up a restaurant. But we did, and I was learned a lot, and it was very good experience for me. And that's where my career took me. I ended up being in the restaurant business my entire career. I worked for different corporations along the way. And one of them moved me back to Springfield, and my wife and I decided to move back to Divernon, and that's where we raised our family. We have a son who's a Springfield firefighter. He went to Eastern Kentucky University. I was talking to Pat earlier that she's an EKU grad as well. He got his bachelor's in fire science, and my daughter is an Indiana University graduate in marketing, and she lives in Dallas, Texas. Like I said, I was in the restaurant business until 2 years ago. And so some people say, you know, why run? Well, the reason I ran was very simple. I'm really concerned about the outward migration that we're having experienced in Illinois. You know, for the last 5 years, we've either led the country or been number 2 in loss of population. And I like to get things down to simplistic reasons. And I think that we need to improve the business climate in Illinois. I think jobs having good jobs, good jobs, create opportunities for people. I appreciate the shout out about my hiring the former prisoner who's gone on to do great things. And that's what I believed in. I believed in opportunities. And I just think we need to be able to provide more of those. And so that's why I ran. I really thought I was going to spend a lot of time on business issues. And I get to that in a little bit later. But, so our state rep decided not to run for re-election. I was on her business advisory board. And so I knew her really well, and I was not planning on running. But when she decided not to run, I was sitting at home, and I told my wife, Sarah just texted me, and she said that she decided she's going to announce tomorrow that she's not running. And I said that to my wife, and I was just sitting there thinking about the ramifications of that. And my wife, who's the smart one of the family, by the way, she said, you should run. And I said, really? She says, yeah, you should run. You've been wanting to do this your whole life. And so the only thing we disagreed on, I told her how much money I thought we needed to put in the campaign as a seed money, and she said no. That's not the right amount. And so and we did go with the amount that she said. And so I was fortunate. I got the endorsement of our local party, which was a big deal. There was 14 people who were asking for to be considered for that, and I got the endorsement. And after the primary and the general election, I was very fortunate to be able to serve the people of the 99th. My district is half of Springfield, Illinois. We're not currently in my district. If we go a little bit west, we would be. But I have half of Springfield, and then I have 7 rural communities in the county. I do not leave Sangamon County. I'm kind of a unique downstate legislator that I only have one county. But also in my district is the University of Illinois Springfield and Lincoln Land Community College. And I work very closely with both those. I was on the board. I am still on the board of directors of the chamber. And during my tenure there, President Warren or Chancellor Cook have served on the board with me. So I get to know them well. And the other thing, I'm very proud. I only have one other source of income, and I am a university employee. Kind of shock you. Very important. I hold. Dr. Redfield probably had the most important job at UIS, and I had the second. I am the shot clock operator for the men's and women's basketball program. I've done that for 7 years, and it's a great deal. But so after I won, now it's one of those things. What do we do? You know, I have an understanding of how the General Assembly works, because if you live in Springfield, you know, you don't have any choice because you read about it or you hear about it every day on the news. But when I go down there, I had to learn the ropes, and it was a lot different than what I thought. A lot of things were a lot more positive than I thought, and there were some negatives, but there was definitely a learning experience. First thing is, I had a bill ready to file. How do I do that? You know, I mean, you think about it. You hear about there are 6,000 bills filed, but they have to be done in a certain way. We didn't know how to do that, so we actually went to a class. We had a week-long class, and then the Republicans, I don't know what the Democrats did for their freshmen, but the Republicans, we had a once a week for the first about 6-7 weeks, we had a segment where we would have speakers come in and talk to us about, the first one was how to file a bill, all the way up to budget negotiations. And so that was very helpful. They also assigned me a mentor. And my mentor happened to be a friend of mine from that I knew before, and he's also my office mate, and he's my seat mate. So I think he sees more of me than he really wants to. But it's Representative Tim Butler, and I've gone to him. Matter of fact, this morning I walked in and I said, okay, mentor, and I asked him, I said, how long are you my mentor? When does that officially go away? But I asked him a question about something that's coming up on Friday. I wanted to get his opinion on that. And so that's been very helpful. I think you could probably relate to that as well in your career, is that you had mentors to work with. And that's been very important. The biggest challenge I had as a freshman was I run my own business. I've been in charge most of my life. Even when I worked for corporations, like when I worked for Domino's Corporation, I had Central Illinois and Central and Northern Indiana. I had 64 stores. So I was able to basically do what I wanted when I wanted. That's not the case at the General Assembly. I was used to doing my schedule all the time. I'm somewhat a control freak, not as much as I used to be, but I like to be in control. And so I was going to do my schedule. I told my legislative assistant, she said that she does schedule. I said, don't worry about it, I will do that. I think that lasted 2 days. And now, I'm just a simple guy from Divernon, Illinois. So it bothers me when I tell somebody to say, they want to know if I'm available for something. I say, could you call Courtney? But that's reality. I don't know if I'm available or not. Courtney does. You know, I don't know what she's working on that day. So all my scheduling now goes through Courtney, and my life's a lot easier. All I got to do is tell her. She tells me where to go, and it's a lot better. But, you know, that's something I didn't think would happen. The other thing is, I thought I would go there and I would work, and I'm not afraid of work. If you're in the restaurant business, you have no choice but to work. And so I thought I would go there early and stay late and work 6-7 days a week and nothing but business issues, you know, because that's why I ran. I ran to improve the business climate. Working on business issues is less than 5% of my time. And, you know, that was eye-opening for me. I'm on 7 different committees. And some of those committees, if I had a choice, I wouldn't be on. But the ones that I probably wouldn't have chose to be on, it would have been a loss for me, because those are some of the committees I've learned the most. I think I've been able to make some significant changes for people's lives. But it's just something that's not the reason I ran, but I take the job very serious, and I take all my committees very serious. And so it's really been beneficial for me. I mean, it has been eye-opening. I've learned some issues that bother people that I've never had to deal with, but are very important to have quality of life that we all want in the state of Illinois. The other thing that was hard to get used to coming from private business is, once again, I control my schedule. I control what the restaurant did and when we're going to do it. And, you know, I don't do that in the General Assembly. I described it up until the last week, I described it when I was talking to people how we operate. We either go 20 miles an hour or 120 miles an hour. And there's days that we go over there and we have the prayer and the pledge and a couple, points of personal privilege, and we leave. And then there's days that we're there until, 9, 10 o'clock at night, working on bills the whole time. The last 3 days, or actually 2 days, I changed that. We were either going 0 or 200 miles an hour. We had a budget come, 1,481 pages. First time we got to see the actual budget, we had 4 hours to vote on it. So I'm not asking for sympathy. But when you read an article about somebody voted for something and this was in it and they didn't know about it, that happens. Is it right? No, but it happens. I don't know if anybody in here could tell me what was in a 1,481-page document in 4 hours, even though we had a lot of staff working on it. Stuff slips through, sometimes intentionally, and sometimes it was just overlooked. And so there's times that, I don't know how many of my constituents here, so I'm not asking for sympathy for me, but when you hear about a legislator who might have voted for something, they didn't know everything that was in the bill, that happens, unfortunately. And I don't think it should. I think we should do the process different. I wish we would have, rather than 4 hours, 4 weeks to look at the budget. But that's not the case. Another big surprise to me was we had over 6,000 bills introduced in the House, and I think another 4,000 in the Senate. And, I think we passed over 600 in the House. I'm not sure what the total number was of everything. But I was really surprised of the number of times that we were voting on something that the first time I heard about it was that day. You know, in my mind, when I was a public citizen, I thought, oh, you know, these things were discussed either in, you know, committees, caucuses, or, you know, lobbyists, and they are. I mean, I'm on 7 committees. We have caucus. We talk about a lot of bills. But I will tell you, the vast majority of bills, the first time I've heard anything about them was when they hit the floor for a vote. And if we don't have a good floor organization, we could be asked to vote on those in less than 30 to 45 seconds. And so I've come up with a system where I have 2 computers on my desk, one state issued that gives me my Republican analysis, that I look for key things there. And then I have my personal Chromebook open up to ILGA, which gives me the state official site, lets me know who filed witness slips. So that's one of the things I want to tell you. If it's an important bill for you, make sure you or your organization has filed a witness slip on it. Because those are big deals. Because I look at those and I see people, that gives me an idea, okay, you know, the Farm Bureau's for this or the Farm Bureau's against that. That doesn't mean I'm going to vote for it, but it gives me an idea of who I might give a quick text to. I text a lot from my desk to people who I'm asking questions about bills. And there's no other way to do it. And you think, well, you should talk about those. Well, how are you going to talk about you don't know what 6,000 bills are actually going to get out of committee and stuff. A lot of times it's very important. We have advocates who come in and they put it on my radar screen. And I'm very fortunate and beneficial that I have a good working relationship, I think, with all the lobbyists. Charlie Parker's Diner was a popular place for people of Springfield, thank goodness. But it was also a popular place for state government. And so I've got to know a lot of the people who involved directors, lobbyists, and legislators. They were customers of mine. And so that really opened up a lot of doors for me. But I was amazed at the number of bills that I didn't know about until the time we're talking about it. The one thing I learned, and I was told this by my mentor, and did I listen to him? No. I listened to him most of the time, but not all the time. But I made a mistake at least twice where I made a decision on a bill before I really understood everything about it. Because sometimes people come in and talk to me. The good ones will tell you both sides of the story. The real good ones come in and tell you, this is why we need it, this is why we really want it, and this is why the people are opposed to it. Some of the other people forget the second part of that. And a lot of bills sound really, really good, and then you find out the deeper you go into them, they're not. I'm going to give you an example. I was asked to co-sponsor a bill, and I did not, but I told them I think I will. I think I will co-sponsor this bill because I really liked what they were trying to do. And what they were trying to do was to eliminate some of the lesser penalties that people receive and lose their license. The reason this resonated with me was my entire career I had people working who might get in a little problem like parking tickets, because that's the way they were selling it. It's just something for parking tickets or unpaid tolls or stuff like that they can't take their license away. Because I would have somebody who would have a minor offense and they would lose their license, and unfortunately, as hard as we would try to keep them to have their job, they would lose it because they couldn't get to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. There's no public transportation. We would send people to go pick them up, and the person who was going to pick them up was running late, so they didn't want to get in trouble, so they didn't go by their house. Or they would go by, honk twice, no one came out. And so it never worked. If you didn't have a license, you couldn't get to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. So I thought, well, this is a good idea. Why do it? Well, they forgot to tell me, but I found out as I really searched the bill that stealing gas, driving off, was also one of the things that they didn't want to have you lose your license for, which I'm opposed to, because I think that's a little different than parking tickets. And also stealing a car for a joyride was something that you were not going to use. So to me, they weren't truthful in the fact that they said, these are all the things we're trying to do. So I felt bad when I had to go back to them and say, no, not only won't I co-sponsor this, I'm going to try to kill your bill. And so that's a lesson I learned, is to tell people I'm going to look it over, I will give it consideration, but not make any commitment on the 30-second elevator speech they give you. And so I think I will be better at that in years to come. My biggest and I think most positive surprise was how much bipartisan work we actually do. Unfortunately, it's not good stories for the news and newspapers or television. They like to hit on the issues that when we have the 3.5-hour debate on progressive income tax or the 2.5-hour debate we had on the abortion bills. And that was very party lines. But having the restaurant was very beneficial for me because I didn't get to choose the people I wanted to have come into my restaurant. I had to work with all walks of life, and that was great. I wanted to. That was one of the best parts about the restaurant. And so that enabled me to feel comfortable talking to anybody on the other side of the aisle. So I did that. My mentor told me, he says, the best thing you can do is when you file a bill, get that committee list and go talk to everybody on the floor about your bill. Explain to them so they won't have any surprises when you present it in committee. So I did that on everything I did. I presented, I think, about 6 items got into committees. And every one of them, I talked to every person about it, and I knew how they were going. Whoops. I'm going too long. I talked to every one of them about it, and so they knew about it before, and I felt comfortable. One bill I knew wasn't going to pass. I knew it wasn't, so we had problems. So I worked on it. I brought it back. So this particular bill started off, was going to fail. I worked on it, and the last day a bill could get out of committee, my bill was supposed to be heard. Being a freshman Republican, I should say freshman in the minority party, how's that? I don't want to label things. You don't get high priority when they call bills. We were on a hard 12 o'clock out, and that meant at 12 o'clock this committee's over because we're going into session. And the chairperson made that very clear that she would not listen to a bill after 12 o'clock. And this was the last day. If they don't get through, according to rules can be changed, but according to rules, it wasn't going to be heard. So I'm sitting there waiting. At 11:57, they call a representative up, and he has 3 bills. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm done. And I'm really disappointed. It was an education bill brought to me by a principal from Pleasant Plains. And I felt really bad for him because I knew it wasn't going to happen. The rep got over at 12:02, so I knew we were done. Chairperson made eye contact with me, and she says, Representative Murphy, are you ready? I literally ran to the front. I presented my bill, passed, because I knew it would, because after the changes I made, I knew it was comfortable. So I go on the floor later and thank her. And she said, there's no way I wasn't going to let your bill be called. She said, you worked hard, you worked the right way. And so I was very proud of that. You know, I was able to work on the other side of the aisle. And then I was surprised to find out 2 Democrats didn't get their bills called that day. She chose me over them. So there is bipartisan work to being done. You know, are there times that I stand up and I get angry and make my point? Yes. Do I get upset with them? Yes. But I know at the end of the day, let's work together. I will never call them names, never embarrass them, never do anything like that. That doesn't get us anywhere. So I want to finish up with some accomplishments. I got some bills passed. I'm excited. I got one bill getting ready to go to the governor to be signed. We had a couple other referendums I think are very important get passed. I participated in the Capitol bill. I think it's very important. It was a tough vote. I'm not happy to stand up here and say I was a yes vote on 19 cents gas tax increase, but I thought it was the best deal we had, You know, that could have been worse. They were talking 25 cents, and it was a very important bill for my district. We have a lot of important capital projects. University Illinois Springfield is getting a new library out of the capital project. We're moving the 3rd Street Rail over, and many other things. The thing that I'm most proud of, and the toughest vote I took, was the budget. And the reason is we were in negotiation. Remember I said we were either going 0 or 200? We were in caucus for 4 hours the last day of session, because we were trying to get some business reforms through, and they were not receptive. Our leader Durkin, I'm very proud of him. He kept on going back and forth to us, telling us, guys, hang loose. I'm working. The governor finally came in and got involved in negotiations, and we got 6 key business issues. I won't go through them today, but there were 6 key issues that were near and dear to my heart, because if you remember at the beginning of my speech, why did I run, was to improve the business climate. So when we got these 6 issues, they said they expected Republican participation on the budget, and that's just the way the system works. I stood up and I said, I will be one of those votes, because the reason I ran was to improve the business climate, and today's the first day I've had an opportunity to do that. And so I knew there were some things in the budget that was going to cause me angst, but I knew at the end of the day, if I really was going to do what I came to do, I had to be a yes vote. And so I am a yes vote. I don't apologize for that. There's some things in the budget I wish we would change, but that's not reality. And the reason I did is we have some members of our caucus who are upset with me and others. But at the end of the day, I decided I came there to govern and try to make a change, not to just sit back and complain and say no. And so thank you very much, and I hope this tells you a little bit more about me and a 65-year-old freshman. so
Thank you for watching the Illinois Channel. You may also wish to follow us online, where you are free to make comments or program suggestions. Get our breaking news updates on Twitter, where you can find us at Illinois Channel. You can find our past programming on YouTube at youtube.com/Illinois Channel TV. Or you can go to the Illinois Channel website at illinoischannel.org. There you can find not only our current video stories and programs, but also our library of past programs, as well as articles that provide additional information about Illinois issues and individuals. The Illinois Channel, keeping you connected to your state, your issues, your home.